there's nothing I can do here. I wanted us to be friends. I wanted us to be close. I wanted us to have the quote unquote perfect blended family, which I realize is, no one really
That's
has.
Crazy. That's insane.
But I wanted it.
Hey, y'all. Welcome back to another episode of the Nacho Kids Podcast.
We have an exciting announcement to make.
And what is it, David?
We're going to be changing the way we do these podcasts.
What?
Yes, we are.
You mean after 290 something episodes, we're changing?
That's right. We are. Yeah. So you and I have talked about ways to improve the podcast and the academy and all this stuff. We're doing a lot of changes this year, lots of changes. So one of the things we decided to do is change the podcast. What we want to do is basically 1 week you're going to have a podcast interview. And so we're going to not really have an intro to the interview like we've been doing, like we're doing right now. Mm-hmm. It's just going to be kind of get right into the interview. And so for all you folks who don't like us bantering, there you go.
Yeah.
And then the next week, we're going to have the podcast where it's just you and I talking. So
with no other person, no guest.
With no interview. So if you want to listen to interviews, there'll be every other week. If you want to listen to us, then it'll be every other alternating week. But I think that's going to be good for a couple of reasons. One is some people are like, we want to hear more from you and Lori. And so it gives us an opportunity to do that without us saying, now we're making the intro too long.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're going to do that because we've had a lot of good feedback for the episodes that we've done recently where it's just you and I talking, whether it's talking about our story or things like that. And so we're going to separate those two out.
Give it a chance. Let us know what y'all think, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, definitely give us your feedback. Send us some messages. You can email contact us at nachokids.com and let us know. You can comment on the videos on YouTube and all this kind of stuff too. We don't necessarily check those as often. So if you can just shoot us an email, we appreciate it. But certainly comment on the videos. One of the things we definitely want to focus on this year is our YouTube channel. And so
that means I got to be on video.
If there's any favor we can ask of you this year, it is to head on over to our YouTube channel and like and subscribe so that we can get that thing going and off the ground to reach more people, because YouTube in and of itself is a search engine. And so for more people to be able to find this resource to be helped, we need to be more active there. So thanks for doing that in advance. Appreciate it.
Yes.
So that's happening. The Nacho Kids Academy is about to undergo a massive change. Might as well talk about that for a minute. We are adding more things to the academy, but we're also splitting off into another tier. So right now there's basically just one tier. There is just one tier. So you get access to what's there. We're changing some things. We're moving, for example, the live coaching calls, which happen twice a month. We're moving those into a higher tier. And then we're also adding some things to that higher tier. So there's going to be the current tier now, but it's losing the coaching calls, but we're adding a higher tier, which will keep the coaching calls and add more stuff to it.
Right.
But here's the thing you need to remember. If you get in now at the current level, we're moving everybody that is currently in there to the new level, which is going to be more expensive. So just to give you an example, the new tier is going to be $149 a month. The current tier is $49. So if you get in now at the $49 a month level, we will move you to the $149 a month level and keep your price the same. But that is only until February 15th. Once February 15th hits, we're turning the switch on. It's going to be two separate tiers, and you won't be able to get in at that price anymore. And there's no going back. Like, I don't want an email saying, "Oh, I missed the time frame. Can you still?" No, not doing it. You're getting your warning now, to
I'm
go in and
laughing
get that
because
done.
he knows I'll be like, okay.
Yeah, no, this is plenty. Matter of fact, you listeners of the podcast are the first ones hearing about this. So we're giving you plenty of time to get in there and get that done. Matter of fact, as we're recording this, it's a month, but get in there and get that done, and you will be locked in at that $49 price for as long as you stay a member, as long as you don't leave. If you leave and come back, then guess what? You're now back at the higher price. So don't do that. But gives you an opportunity to get a ton more value and lock you in. So that's it. That's all we're talking about for now. There's other things we have going on, but we can't talk about everything right now because it's a massive amount. Anyway, with that, we're going to stop our bantering. Let's talk about our interview for today.
Today's episode was a little long, so I decided to split it up into two. So today is part one. Next week will be part two. And our guest today, she's been married a little over a year. So she is new to this blended family life, y'all. She says blending is hard emotionally and mentally.
I agree with that.
Very hard.
So here's the thing, though. I'd love to tell everybody that there's a point that it gets not hard, but really, for the most part, it just gets easier to do the hard.
Easier to do the hard. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, okay, here you go. You know, I love my weightlifting examples. So you grab a hold of a 50-pound weight, it's heavy. But if you grab a hold of that 50-pound weight enough and you do the reps, it feels lighter, but it didn't get lighter. It's still 50 pounds, but now it's easier to do.
You are stronger.
Exactly.
And the tools that we teach you make you stronger.
Exactly.
I got that one. Aren't you proud?
I am proud.
I just want to go ahead and tell you part two of this interview, which will be next week, her husband jumps in.
Uh-oh.
And David, he said he's a hoot. And so they are both going to be on a podcast with us together.
Oh, nice. We'll have two hoots.
Two hoots. I'm not going to say what I was thinking.
It's Hooters.
No, David, that's not what I was thinking. She does have a stepmom, and her stepmom has been an amazing friend to her. Let's get to listening.
All right, let's get it.
Oh, I've got a lot. So we've got the blended family, we've got the divorces, we've got.
Oh, so you got plenty of content for me, is what you're saying.
Oh, lots of content. Absolutely. Yes. I am, there's the words obviously talk about a lot of things, but I wanted to tell you that I'm a new step parent. So I guess you would call it legally, I became a step parent September of 23. So that's when we got married. But we've been together since 2018. So it's been, a little bit of time since then.
Did you live together before you got married?
Yes, for a little bit, but not too long. And we've known each other since we were 12, though. So we went to junior high, high school, and college together.
Wow.
And in that time, we both got married, had children. Kids were, let's see, when we got married, they were 17, 19, and 21. But when we started dating, they were, officially dating, I guess you could say, 13, 14, and 16. So it was
his kids?
Our kids together. So he has a daughter, and now she is 18. Okay. And I have two sons, and one is 20 and one is 22.
Okay.
So we are probably, of the people that you listen to and talk to, are probably on the older side of the spectrum.
You're in the midpoint of the blend age-wise.
So we are new to the blending, and I'm not going to lie, it's in some ways it's been hard. And I know that's not unusual, but it's emotionally and mentally, it's been, I'm kind of glad that it's happening now and not when I was younger, because I feel like I'm more prepared for accepting whatever it is or isn't. But when I saw I think I found you on Instagram originally, piqued my interest, and I started watching and listening, and I listened to the last podcast I listened to was the woman who had the bio mom that was kind of getting into her business and creating issues in her marriage and things like that. That was the last podcast that I listened to. And so then that kind of prepared me for what we were going to talk about today. But it was, like I said, it's been interesting. It's been a long, long story so far, but fun nonetheless. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Oh, and it can be a lot of fun.
Oh, it's super fun. And it's definitely not boring.
Oh, definitely not.
Like we have our ups and our downs, but when it's up, it's great.
Yeah. So when y'all got together, how long had you been separated or divorced, and how long had he been?
So I was, the divorces are never pretty. I don't think I know a pretty divorce story, but I was separated for 2 years, but we were still living together
Okay.
under the same roof. We had a fairly, big house. And so it was easy to kind of manage it that way, especially with the kids and,
Yeah.
back and forth, that kind of thing. Yeah. And I thought it was going to be a pretty amicable divorce. And then some things came to light and we just stopped. I was like, I'm not messing around with this. This is done.
Mm-hmm.
So then my husband, he was separated for a year, but same situation, living under the same roof while they were separated.
Wow. Is that a
And
new thing?
I don't know. It seemed to work for me just because I couldn't imagine not being around my kids every single day, especially at the ages that they were.
Right.
So and to give my ex-husband some credit, he was, once we finally made the decision that we were getting divorced, we were able to move forward in a way where we had the kids' best interests in mind.
Right.
So, there was always a little bit of drama here and there, but for the most part, he was fairly, on a scale of 1 to 10, he was a 7. So it was pretty easy to deal with my ex-husband when we were going through our divorce. So it wasn't totally awful.
Right.
And which was nice for me and for the kids.
Yes.
And that's kind of what I was focused on in that time, was making sure that they were okay.
Right.
And then my husband, like I said, he was separated for a year, living under the same roof. And then we've both been divorced since I was legally divorced in 2020, and then he was legally divorced in 2019.
Okay.
Yeah. We both, I wanted to add this. So this is kind of an interesting little twist, is that when we were in high school, my husband lost his mom to breast cancer.
Oh, I'm
And
so sorry.
then I lost my mom to breast cancer when I was 20. But we knew each other. And my parents actually went to his mother's wake and funeral because they knew her. So we grew up in the same town. Back in the 80s, it was like pretty small town. And so it's kind of interesting how the things intermix. But the point of, I guess, I'm making is that, neither of us had our moms around. And so I grew up kind of learning how to be a mom on my own. And if you've had a mom your whole life, you know that that's a journey that you really want to try to have somebody kind of there with you. And I didn't. So I felt like this entire thing was being a mom and being married and having a family was, a big, huge learning process in addition to, the norm, I guess I should say.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
And him
hard.
too. Boys need their moms, and he didn't have his mom.
Yeah.
She was sick for probably, I may be not saying this correctly, but I think she was sick for like 6 or 7 years before she even passed away.
Yeah.
So it was not easy for them as a family.
I can't imagine.
Yeah. So anyway, that feeds into the story that kind of we're getting to here.
Did your dad or his dad ever remarry?
So his dad did remarry, but there was very little or no blending at
Okay.
all. It wasn't, from what I understand. And again, I'm saying this from what he's told me. I wasn't there to witness it or anything like that, but that it wasn't great. My dad did remarry a wonderful woman that I adore. And I didn't, in the beginning, we had our, you know, in the beginning, everybody always struggles a little bit, but, I loved my dad very much. I was very protective of him. And, women would call and I'd hang up or they'd leave a message and I wouldn't tell him and things like that.
Really? How old were
Well,
you?
yeah, I, I was
You were
I
an
was 20.
adult.
I was 20. Yeah, but I was protective and then he met my stepmom and they've been together for 20, I want to say 22 years now. And she's very good at nachoing. But we were adults, but still, she's been nothing but an amazing friend to me. So I'm
Oh,
lucky in that way for sure.
yes.
So I had a good model.
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
How were things when y'all met? Your kids were excited about you dating. His kids were excited about him dating. Everybody
Oh,
got along.
we weren't telling our children that we were dating.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we were kind of not saying anything, and then eventually started talking about, for on his side, it was a little bit more sensitive, and we'll talk about that in a little while, I guess. We'll get into that, but for me, it was more I just wasn't myself as a human being wasn't ready to explain those kinds of things to my kids yet. I wasn't ready for that, and I know they weren't either. So
Okay.
we started to date, and then eventually, I don't remember the timeline, but a few months after we started dating, I think I finally said something to them about it, and they had mixed feelings about it. But fast forward to now, and it's actually a good lead into telling you that my kids now. So we moved in together, obviously, because we're married. We moved in together. My husband helped the kids, get their room set up, and they got to know each other. We started having some holidays together. It was great because the last couple of years, we did those holiday jammy photos, with
Yeah.
the flannel pants and matching and the big joke for me is like they're just getting so old someday they're going to be too old to do this, but they just keep doing it. And I know they do it for me.
Right.
They're certainly not doing it for them, but they humor me and they just, yep, we'll put them on, and they put on their silly outfits and we sit down on the stairs and we take a holiday picture, and it's very, very nice. And I'm not going to lie. I mean, there are days when my youngest just gives me the hardest time about my husband, and there's some days that he's amazing about it. And I just think it's because he is the youngest, and the youngest of mine, I guess I should rephrase
Yeah.
that, the youngest of mine. And they have their issues, but they figure it out.
So,
And
how often are your kids with you? And are all your kids still with you?
so they're all in college.
Okay.
My youngest just left college to pursue some contract work with an animation company.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, really, really neat. So he made the decision to live with his dad. So
Okay.
he just within the last month or so moved in with his dad.
Okay.
But when my oldest on his college breaks, he does the breaks with my oldest. So my oldest is really, really good about breaking up the time between dad and mom. So
Okay.
he will say, okay, I'm going to be here these days. I'm going to be here these days. This is how I want to do it. And I never argued. I was like, okay, yep, we'll do it exactly the way you want it. Because I didn't want it to become a thing.
Right.
Like mom is making a big deal about, not being at her house. I didn't want that. I wanted them to
Right.
want to be here, to want to be with us.
Right.
So, and he sort of naturally kind of leads when it comes to that kind of thing. And then my youngest just goes along with it. Okay, whatever, he's doing, I'm going to do.
Right.
So to make a longer story longer, Um, they spend like for this holiday, it's been every other week. So they've been bouncing because college breaks are really long. Like he doesn't go back to school till the 21st.
Okay.
So they're still bouncing back and forth. And so and he did say, my youngest did say, well, when that happens, like in the summer, we're just going to do the regular schedule. But I don't want to be bouncing around during the year when I'm trying to work.
Right.
And that makes sense. And he's a boy and he wants to be with his dad. That's fine.
Well,
It
and not,
honestly does not bother me.
yeah. Well, I'm glad that it doesn't bother you because I don't see that happening with me. But at some point, they don't want to bounce around and it's not
Right.
personal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, totally. And my oldest is a little bit more reserved, and my youngest wears his heart on his sleeve. So I have both of those situations with both of my kids, and I'm fine with both of them. However they want to address it, I'm on board.
Hmm.
So, and my husband is actually very, very good with them. He's just a little bit, he has, I would say he has OCD. So when the kids come and they make a mess and things happen, then I could see him starting to get upset about it. But then I have to, I say to him in private, like, okay, they're not here all the time. The messes will get cleaned up. Someday they're never going to be here. So I'm going to go ahead and deal with the messes because they're not 10, 11, 12, where
Right.
they're learning how to take care of themselves. They're 20 and 22. So it's a little bit different.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's hard, even when the stepkids come back here, whether it's for a weekend or a few days, whatever it is, which I guess a weekend is a few days,
Mhm.
but they just leave stuff.
They
And
do.
it's funny because I remember my sister saying one time she came to my house and she said, "Well, your house is lived in." I'm like, "What does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean to you?"
That sounds like a compliment, but also an insult. Like,
Right. I mean, don't get me wrong. I know my house isn't better homes or gardens, but I was like, okay. And I really didn't know how to take that. And I thought about it and I've realized kind of more of what she meant by that. My house is lived in
mhm,
100%. And
yeah,
that's not a bad thing.
right.
You can tell that we live here. You can tell puppies live here. And well, me and Jackson at our old house when he was little, things were so neat and clean.
Mhm.
And when I moved in with David, stuff drove me crazy. You can't let that stuff drive you crazy when there's
But
7 people in a house.
but don't you feel like, sometimes when the children, no matter what age they are, even if they're 30 and they're coming to your house and they're making a mess or being messy or being carefree, don't you feel like that's kind of a comfort level too in some ways? Like, this
Yes,
is my mom's house, my dad's house. This makes me comfortable. I'm going to be comfortable and this is how I show it.
right,
And and they're not trying to be jerks.
right. I can see that
They're
side of it.
you know,
Yeah.
I think there's a balance there somewhere,
Well, they still
but
look at it as home.
right.
They don't look at it as them being a guest except for when they want you to do stuff for them.
And when I talk to them, I always say, I don't ever say, my house.
Right,
I always say home. When you
mhm,
come home, I don't ever say when you come to my house. I don't
right.
phrase it like that because
Home.
ever since the beginning, since we moved into this house, I was a single mom when I moved into this house, and it was our house. And so when my husband moved in, that was a whole nother thing. But I always said, this is your house. It doesn't matter how old you are or where you go. This is your place.
Yeah,
And I'm
this is
sure, and
home.
you know what? I'm sure my ex-husband says the same thing.
Right.
He probably, and that's good. That I would expect him to say those things. And he's dating too, by the way. So,
Oh, he is.
oh yeah, my ex-husband he's been in a serious relationship with somebody for a while, which is good.
So I wanted to ask you,
Mhm.
Okay, so your kids were there off and on, we'll say, went back
Mhm,
and forth from college. What about
mhm.
stepdaughter? How often was she there
Never.
at
And
all?
I'm gonna get to that in just a minute, but I think I should front load it a little bit,
Okay.
if that's okay.
Yes.
So,
Girl, this is like
um
Burger King. You have it your way.
I love it. So, my husband's, I guess we'll call her bio mom, right?
Mhm.
So bio mom, and I'm still getting used to all these phrases as well, so thank you for, helping me. There's a little bit of a learning curve.
Yes.
So, bio mom, in the kindest way possible to say, she has been not supportive of the relationship between my husband and his daughter at
Okay.
all. Like, and if you sat with her, she would tell you, "Oh, no way,"
Right.
but there were situations where, okay, let me just say this. So she never once filed the parenting plan. There wasn't, the parenting plan was, and I may be saying this incorrectly, but I believe the parenting plan was every other weekend, and like every other weekend plus every Tuesday and Thursday, because
That sounds
that's
about
how it
right.
worked out with their schedule or something like that. It was something like that. And this would have started happening, I believe, when she was 13. And the parenting plan wasn't followed once. The daughter would say, she got upset that they were getting divorced. She got upset that he was moving out, and he actually moved out and got his own place. So it wasn't like he just moved in with me.
Right.
He got his own place, which fully supported the whole thing. Like, yes, you absolutely need to do that. And she would say she didn't want to go to be with her dad, and so the ex-wife would just say, "Okay,
You don't have to.
yep, okay," and that's how it went. And so then I jumped in, and maybe I shouldn't have. I jumped in and I said, "Hey, this is not right. You should be able to spend time with your daughter. You know, if this were me, because we're moms, so you know what it's like when someone messes with our kids, right?
Mhm.
If this were my daughter, I would be raising hell,
Oh, yeah.
because there's no way that I would not a single way in the world that I would not see my children."
Right. You'd have to have me
And
arrested.
exactly. Like, I would stand in front of a train if
Mhm.
I had to for my children.
Yep.
And I don't think that he necessarily didn't feel that way. He was afraid of the impact it would have on her if he did push back, because of the way Biomom was behaving.
Right.
So then one day he decides, okay, I'm going to say something that, this is not right. The parenting plan isn't being followed. So he says something, and I was present for, a lot of these conversations. And he would say, okay, I need to start seeing my daughter. And when he did say that, she threatened him with a guardian ad litem.
Oh, really?
Yes. Which made him even more concerned
Mhm.
about what was going to happen, because he's not there. He doesn't have any kind of impact. He can't say anything. He can't do anything with his daughter. She had complete control. It was, at one point, I would characterize it as complete alienation.
That's so sad.
Very sad, because guess what? He's a great dad.
Yeah.
And, she was his baby.
Yeah.
And this whole thing, like, mom just took control, and she couldn't, she knew, or felt like, I feel she felt like she could control him, and she did,
Yeah.
with, the behavior of their daughter. And listen, I know that this isn't new. I've read about it. This happens all the time, where bio moms use, the children as
Punishment.
punishment. Yes.
Mhm.
And this is exactly what happened to my husband. And So now fast forward to, when was it? It would have been last Christmas. So not this past Christmas, but last Christmas. She started showing an interest in spending time with him again and spending time with us. And wouldn't you know it, she gets in the car, she comes here, and she comes in the door. And now, granted, she and I did not have a relationship at all. There was nothing except negative talk about me to her constantly, which sort of created our relationship from the beginning, all that
Mhm.
negative talk. So she walks in our house and she is crying hysterically. She's crying hysterically. And both he and I are like, oh my God, what's going on?
Yeah, somebody
Well,
died.
mom called her on the way there and was teasing her about coming here to spend time with us. Oh, you're
What?
going to see your dad and his fiance? And it was, I don't know how else to say it except it was emotional terrorism.
Right.
And so then, they disappear into her bedroom that we have here. They had a conversation, which I fully expected them to do, and I think at that time they got it figured out. And then, I think Biomom after that saw that she really upset her daughter. And I think she did, at least to my husband, she kind of changed the story and said, oh, no, it's fine. It's fine. I'm fine. She was saying those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And then she started spending time with us again. So we were going to work out together, the three of us. We had birthday parties together with everybody, the three kids and us. So we had a beach ceremony this past June in Florida because we had gotten married the year before, but it was at the courthouse. So we had a beach ceremony in Florida and we presented it to the kids and our friends that we wanted, involved and she decided to come. So did my boys. And it ended up being a pretty good situation. There was a little bit of drama there because, again, mom was involved in calling while she was with us and, really kind of keeping tabs on her. And for whatever reason, I don't really know. I'm not in her head. I don't know. All I know is what I saw. And she was upset. And I think it was also part that she was seeing her dad moving on, and that kind of plays into it as well. I understand she's the youngest, right? And
Right.
she's a girl.
Right.
So we come home. In the meantime, like while we're in Florida, she has a friend come down, and it was a little bit of a mini vacation for her too. I kind of played along with it because I felt like all of them needed it. They all needed it. And I just tried to be the best I could be. And I'm not perfect. I have my issues and I don't have a problem at all sharing them with my husband. You can just ask him. So then comes August and my stepdaughter is getting ready to leave for college and she starts showing signs of like pulling back hard. And there were messages shared between my husband and his daughter about how she's finally, moved on and she doesn't need him and she's done with the whole thing and she's done with me and she doesn't want to ever talk to me again. And I felt like there was a little bit more behind it, but I don't really know. There's always been a little, quote unquote, a little behind everything that happens with her.
Mhm.
So then we had this date. She and I went out. We got our nails done together. I let her drive my car. We went and got Starbucks. This is the first time that we had actually done anything alone together, which was really nice actually. And she was very cute and very sweet and very friendly. And I didn't sense a thing wrong. But what I think probably happened is her mom got involved and got upset. And I actually heard you say something in your podcast the other day about when biomom says something and expresses that she's upset with something that the child is doing with the step parent
Mm-hmm.
or other couple, then they tend to, kind of go with whatever their mom wants and says. And that's what happened. She fell off the face of the earth
Yeah, because
for
they feel like
me.
they're betraying their parent.
Yeah. Yeah. She just disappeared. And I
That was
have not,
August.
that was August. Yeah. And so I have not talked to her at all. I am definitely a person that has serious boundaries, and I took that as a boundary from her.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I kind of started reading about nachoing, and I found you and the whole thing. And so I was like, that's it. I can't, because I got emotionally involved.
Yep.
I started to like her. I liked spending time with her. We had fun together. I liked One night we were sitting on the couch and she was showing me how to use Snapchat. I I feel like I'm an old lady, and like we get on Snapchat and she's showing me how to use it, and I'm like, this is really nice.
Mm-hmm.
And I started to really enjoy our time together, especially all of us together.
Right.
And then she was just gone. And another hard part of it for me was that she became friends with my kids.
Yeah.
So they friended each other on social media and the whole thing. And all of a sudden, well, that's another thing is she uses social media as a way to try to control, how her dad can keep in touch with her. So she deleted and blocked us, or me, I should say, from social media. She, just went silent,
Just on you.
just on me. So she wasn't talking to her dad for a while. So she wasn't talking to him for a while, and that was all related around money, though, because she was very entitled, insisting that he give her money, like things like that. It was very inappropriate. And so when he said to her, listen, this is not good behavior, and no, you know, then she got mad and stopped talking to him.
Wow.
So then, slowly, gradually, over the last few months, they kind of started talking to each other again, which is nice. But I'm completely uninvolved. As a matter of fact, I said I don't really want to know because if I want to know and I ask and I get interested, then I start to feel
Yep.
like,
Like you
well,
care again. Yep.
like I can't. There's nothing I can do here. I wanted us to be friends. I wanted us to be close. I wanted us to have the quote unquote perfect blended family, which I realize is, no one really
That's
has, but
crazy. That's insane.
but I wanted it. I was all
Yeah.
on
Well, I want
board.
to
I
be
was on
5'11"
board,
and
man.
125 pounds.
I was on board. I'm like, let's do this. Let's be a blended family. But there's so many. It's a spider web. There's so many things feeding into everything they're thinking and saying and feeling, and all the people involved, and it's exhausting. And if it's
Yeah.
not exhausting for me, it's got to be exhausting for the kids too, right?
Right.
Right.
So did she block her dad from social media or your kids or just you?
Well, so she was on Life 3. You know what Life 360 is? I'm
Uh-huh.
sure you do. So she was on Life 360 with him, and that was just a parental thing, where he at least gets to see where she is, if she's safe,
Mhm.
that kind of thing. I have that with my own kids, and I love it
Yeah.
because I feel safer, even though they're older. I feel safer knowing where they're at.
Right.
And so she deleted him off of her Life 360 to punish him.
Oh.
She deleted him from, at one point it was Instagram, but then they became friends again or whatever. But, these behaviors have been learned from Biomom.
Mhm.
Biomom in the early years, she was stalking. She would drive by my husband's house with the daughter in the car. And guess who's pulling into the garage?
You.
Me.
Yeah.
So, and it happened a couple of times. And then there were the, screenshots. I heard this on your other podcast as well, which I totally found interesting, that it's a behavior that she was snapshotting, the bio mom, that is,
Mhm.
was snapshots, taking pictures of my social media and then sending it to him being like, why is she writing this? Or why is she pinning this on Pinterest? When the funny part was it had absolutely nothing to do with
With
them.
them. Yeah. And that's
But
so funny.
they were making everything about them. It was
Uh-huh.
really, really weird. And so then I got to the point where I was like, I can't do anything.
Reminds me of that song. I bet you think this song is about you.
Yes. And so I actually had to go dark. Like I had to, because of all this, I had to block certain people on social media. I had to make so many things private, and because I just didn't want the drama,
Mhm.
you know? And the bio mom, another thing is she got on and showed her daughter how to create, and this was back in the day, so like in the very beginning, how to create a Facebook page so that she could stalk me. So they created a fake Facebook page together so that they could look on the internet at things that I was doing or not doing.
Wow.
She taught her how to do that, and then and also gave her my name, the kind of car I drove. Like it was very over the top.
How'd you find all that out? Stepdaughter tell you?
How did I find out that she did that?
Yeah.
Bio mom told my husband.
Oh,
Bio mom said, "Oh yeah, we created a Facebook account together, a fake one,
okay.
so we could stalk her."
Yeah, like everything you post is gonna be public.
Well, I mean, at the time, there were some weird settings. Like everything had to be, you had to go on and like
Yeah,
change it to a certain audience or whatever. And there were some things that were out there, but it wasn't. It was just my Facebook. And by the way, it's my social media.
right. Yeah,
It's my family, my stories, my things. It doesn't have anything to do with anybody else. If you don't want to look at it, don't go to it.
right.
So, and the whole alienating thing, it was really like, I think my husband did the best he could with what he was given. We are not the same kind of person, so he did handle it differently than I would have. But like I said earlier, I'm also a mom. And I think moms and dads are a little bit different sometimes when it comes to that kind of thing.
Yeah.
He was really, really aware of upsetting the bio mom, being worried that it would affect their daughter
And it did.
because of the way that she was. So there were no filters. Like the bio mom would just say everything. She would
Yeah.
talk about adult scenarios with a 13-year-old child. So
Yeah.
there wasn't any, there were no boundaries. And that's another, in their marriage, there were no boundaries. So it was not good.
Right.
No marriage is perfect, obviously, but he and I actually told him this before we got married. I said, I'm not going to marry you until I know that I'm getting into a healthy situation, because I'm not trading an unhealthy marriage for another unhealthy marriage.
Right.
So we went to therapy.
Oh,
It
good.
was, yeah, I said, we're going to do this. And so we went to therapy, and man, we got through a lot. It was a couple years of therapy, and we got through a lot. And guess what? I've never been happier. Never in my life have I ever been happier than I am right now. And I
I'm
think
so glad.
he would probably tell you the same thing.
That is
Thank you.
awesome.
Yeah, I'm completely in love. Junior high, high school, and college. He was my boyfriend for a week in 7th grade.
Oh,
And then we dated in college a little bit, but you know what college is like. It's like, everything's kind of loosey goosey. And then after, marriages declined and kind of went where they went, we were kind of like, wow, this is weird.
yeah.
you know? So here we are, but we're just we did the work, and I'm not gonna lie, like people see us like, oh, happy newlyweds. Yeah, we are happy newlyweds, but we went through fire to get here.
Yeah.
We did the work. I mean, there were times when I thought, oh my God, is this really gonna work?
Yeah.
You
Because,
know?
I mean, you've been together almost 7 years.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, things are between us are amazing. Like we're solid. And that actually makes me happy that my children get to see that they get to
Hmm.
see me happy. And my youngest actually said to me, wow, I'm really glad that he makes you happy.
Right.
He
It's
said
important for
that.
your kids to see a
Yeah,
happy, healthy relationship because they don't know what to imitate
absolutely.
or what it's supposed to look
Absolutely.
like. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. And we're very, very happy. And, we lost some friends, we lost some family in our divorces. And honestly, I feel like where we are now, it was all just meant to be this way,
Yeah.
you know?
Those losses weren't
And
losses, they were blessings.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And right now, where we are today in this day, I am more concerned about my stepdaughter because she grew up in a home where it was okay to not have boundaries. She grew up in a home where she pretty much got away with anything because they both, and this is on him too, they both didn't want to upset her
Hmm.
in any way.
Right.
So she got away with everything. So now I told my husband, I said, life is going to end up teaching her a lot of lessons because you guys did not.
Hmm.
And that is unfortunate.
Right.
And I really, really wish that I could be in her life because I know that I could help her, but she's not in a position to accept me as a stepmom, let alone as a friend. I mean, I'm not even in her life at this point.
Was she like that before y'all got married? Has it always been this way?
Yeah, they didn't, she spent the night at his house once
Since they
in
split
all,
up?
since they split up. So in the last almost 8 years,
Oh, wow.
she has not spent the night. Well, I take that back. She spent the night at his house when the dog got sprayed by a skunk. She didn't want to be around the smell.
Right.
So she went and stayed at his townhouse when he was living alone.
Wow.
Yeah. But think about that. I mean, that's
What's her beef with you, though? Because y'all weren't around each other a whole lot, right? Because she never stayed.
she doesn't like it. Well, I know she doesn't like it that he's remarried, that he's moved on,
She's
that
jealous.
well, yeah, yeah, definitely. There's some of that happening. Unfortunately, I know that Biomom was, like I said earlier, sort of she was very forthcoming with everything that went on in their divorce and everything that went on that and let me rephrase that. Everything that went on from her perspective
Right.
is what she told her daughter.
Right. Yeah.
So it's unfortunate and we are where we are and they're getting older, which is a good thing. So I want to be positive and say that eventually, she'll come around and we'll be friends and that would be a nice thing. for me and I think for her. But right now, it's just the 4 of us. That's in
Right.
terms of a blended family.
Yeah. And I know that has to hurt your husband.
Well, it makes him miss her.
Right.
I mean, he
Your
misses
kids are a
her.
constant reminder that she's not there.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I try to be with not being in her life, I try like this Christmas, I had all the stockings up, I make a big deal about the holidays. So I had all the stockings up, I had all of their ornaments up. I you know, I'm not deceptive and I don't like I want him to have a relationship or I want him to feel like she's there even
Mhm.
when she's not. I decorated her room, like I was excited about it. But there's too many influences outside of our control.
Yeah. But she's going off to college now, right?
Yeah, she just finished her first semester away. Yeah.
Is it far from y'all?
About 8 hours.
Oh, wow. That's a good ways.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes she flies though. So it's, you know,
Yeah.
give or take a few hours. But she was home and she saw him a couple of times while she was home, but it makes me sad for him the way the relationship has been strained.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and it's like you said earlier, like you almost don't want to know when he talks to her. Like part of you wants to know, like, have you talked to her? How's she doing? But then the
mhm.
other part of you, when you get drug in, it's because you do care. You want to know what's going on. But then at the same time, you get aggravated because she hasn't been in contact more.
Yeah, my husband will like he'll be I don't know if he won't be angry, but he'll be upset maybe a little bit if I say this, but I do think that there is manipulation that happens where, she needs something that she's not getting financially and so she'll do something like make plans with him so that it
Oh,
seems like she's putting effort into the relationship so that she can get something out of him.
hmm,
And that part is hard. Like that's hard because shortly after there comes a request for money.
right.
Like the bio mom never like she once he moved in here, she stopped communicating with him completely. And the and
Oh,
the and the parenting plan wasn't even over yet. The bio mom. The bio mom
mhm,
was never good at communicating about what was happening with their daughter because she was doing whatever she thought was going to benefit her
right.
or how she could manipulate him, how she could get what she needed financially from him. Like an example. So they were shopping for a prom dress.
Hmm.
This was last year and the year before, now that I think of it. And they go out, they find a dress, they pay for it, and then send him the bill for half. It wasn't, do you want to come with us to look for prom dresses? Or, hey, we're looking at the $700 prom dress. Do you think you can pitch in half for this prom dress? It wasn't that. It was sending him the bill.
Wow.
So he was like, at one point, he was like an ATM
Right.
because
Yeah.
he just get these requests for money and he felt bad saying no because that was the only contact
Right.
and influence he had was by helping out financially.
Right.
And of course, I'm back here like, what?
Yeah. And you're like, don't you see
$700
what's
dress?
happening? Yeah. But he sees what's happening. He's not
Oh,
blind.
mm, you're right. You're right. He does see it, but as right now, as his wife, seeing that and knowing that it's also a part of me now because it's not just his finances anymore. Now it's mine too. I work full time, he works full time. Guess what? It's our money.
Hmm.
It's our, $350 that we're putting towards a dress.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's different. She's the bio mom has been single this whole time. So she doesn't have the experience of knowing what it's like to have to do this with another person. So it's like I said earlier, it's a spider web of so many things just feeding into ugh, whatever. Anyway,
Did
so
bio
I
mom
did
cheat
the
on him?
wow. That's forward. Yes.
Okay. I already knew by her behavior.
Yeah. So it was early on, in their marriage. But for him at the time, it was he needed and wanted to keep their marriage together. They had a young kid.
Hmm. Yeah.
So you know, I don't know. It's all a spider web.
Right.
But I did find this book, and I know because listening to you speak and kind of watching you, knowing the let them theory, right? You know what this? Please tell me
Yes.
you know.
Yes.
Yes. So I discovered this as well, and the book just arrived today, so I'm excited to read it. And
Everybody's reading that book.
it's a lot like exactly what you are saying,
Yep.
which is, let them do what they're going to do. Let them behave how they're going to behave, because really all that matters is how you accept it, how you internalize it, how you do or don't make it a part of what you're thinking or feeling,
Right. You
right?
have
And,
a choice.
and I feel blessed at this point being my age, because my younger self would have not reacted this way. I would have been upset. I would have been like screaming and yelling and, oh my gosh, why is all this happening? Oh my gosh, like, oh, poor me. But I feel like I'm at a place in my life where, and I said this to my husband one day, I was like, this is dangerous. I don't care.
Uh-huh.
I don't feel anything about this. And I don't know if that's good or bad, but turns out, it's actually a good thing, because people can be how they want to be. I'm just not going to make it a part of me. I've
Right.
created that boundary with people. And
Yeah.
I appreciate boundaries, right?
Yes. 100%.
Like, even when other people create a boundary, when my husband creates a boundary, when I create a boundary, I hear it as that is something that they need
Mhm.
to be who they want to be. So if it's my kids talking, or if it's my husband talking, I almost said his name, then it's, those are so important. And again, I hear you talking about that in your podcast too, how important boundaries are.
Yes. They are so important. And it's
Hmm.
important to respect other people's boundaries just as much it is to create healthy ones yourself.
Absolutely. Which is why I haven't, and because again, the old self, I'd have been
Mhm.
like, I'm texting her, I'm calling her. But no,
Yep.
she said, I don't want to talk to her. I don't want any communication with her. I just want to talk to you, Dad.
Did you ever
And
find out what you supposedly did that's so wrong?
yes, she blames, based on all the information that's been given to her by her mother, she blames me for pretty much everything.
For
And
them
and the
splitting
fun
up?
yeah, the funny thing about it is, though, I'm okay with that. Like,
Mhm.
right now, I'm okay with that. I wasn't, because it's been the same story this whole time.
Right.
Not the whole time, but when she finally came around, last year, and she was hanging out with us, it felt like we were getting somewhere. And I said earlier, I became emotionally involved and was excited, and I do care about her. We said I love you to each other.
Mhm.
I mean, we were close at
Right.
one point, and it felt so nice. Like, finally, we can just be people.
Mhm. Yeah.
But there's just been there's too much control on that other side. There's too much control.
Yeah, but she can try to control your relationship with stepdaughter, but the older stepdaughter gets, hopefully, the more she'll pull away from that negativity.
I heard you say also the other day, loyalty bonds.
Yes.
right? That's what it is. She may have started feeling something, maybe not, who knows, because we'll never know. But she definitely feels a loyalty to her mother.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thanks for listening to today's podcast episode. If you would like to be a guest on our podcast, email Lori at LORI@nachokids.com or contact us at nachokids.com. And don't forget, February the 15th, you can no longer join the Academy and get everything that's in it included, plus more, for $49 a month.
Yep. Price is going up. Get in now. Lock it in.
It will never happen again.
That's right. That's full show. All right, folks. Thanks for listening. Join us again next time. And remember, life is good
When you nacho.